Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Wynna Wong. These are our top stories tonight. Health officials warn that locally transmitted COVID cases may rise, but at a lower rate than at the fifth wave peak. Lawmakers more than double a subsidy for workers whose bosses go bankrupt. And Hong Kong's central bank raises its base lending rate by 75 basis points, in line with the U.S. Federal Reserve. More than 1,000 locally transmitted COVID cases were reported today. Health officials expect the upward trend to continue. Maisie Mock reports.
Hong Kong recorded 1,179 COVID cases today. They included 1,085 locally transmitted infections.
In
the past 2 weeks, the number of local infections has risen steadily. Today, we have surpassed 1,000. We expect the trend to continue for some time. Indeed, there is a growing trend. However, the number is still much lower than the peak in the fifth wave.
19 cases are suspected to be of the Omicron subvariant BA.2.12.1, with 7 infected from unknown sources. One patient is a close contact of an infected student from the Pui Ching Middle School's track and field team. 6 team members have come down with COVID. Another 113 infections were reported from 103 schools. One more class in Cannon Kindergarten and Nursery's Charming Garden branch has to be suspended until next Thursday after infections were detected. 2 classes in the same branch were suspended earlier. Hospital Authority Chief Manager Larry Lee, meanwhile, admitted that staff have been discouraged from gathering for meals because of fears that infections would trigger a manpower shortage. 6 staff members from United Christian Hospital were infected earlier after attending a farewell dinner. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
The government subsidy, which workers can apply for when their employers go bankrupt, has more than doubled. The increase comes 26 years after the insolvency fund mechanism was last updated. Isaac Lee reports.
Legislative Council President Andrew Leung announced the good news for workers after the chamber voted in favor of a resolution they had long waited for. From Friday, employees who were not fully paid before their company went bankrupt can receive up to $80,000 from the government, more than twice the original amount. And a worker who is laid off without prior notice can claim a maximum of $45,000, double the current sum. While lawmakers supported the resolution, some felt it came too late.
At the Manpower Panel meeting, the DAB suggested a standing review mechanism so that adjustments is made in a timely manner, but the government said it doesn't want the mechanism to be too mechanical. During the fifth wave of the epidemic, many businesses closed down. Because we don't have a regular adjustment or review mechanism, so most employees who are owed wages will only get compensation at the level of 25 years ago.
Labour Chief Law Chi Kwong said the review was disrupted by several factors, including inadequate reserves in the insolvency fund and deflation after the handover. Labour sector lawmakers also noted that some applicants had waited for more than a year before getting the subsidy. Law said the authorities will try to speed up the process. Exactly, HKIBC.
The competition watchdog has launched legal proceedings against 2 engineering firms and their parent companies for allegedly fixing prices and rigging bids in air conditioning projects involving $2 billion. One of the firms, Analog Holdings, is controlled by Otto Poon, husband of Justice Secretary Teresa Chang. Maisie Mock reports.
Atel Building Services Engineering, a subsidiary of Analog Holdings, was investigated by the Competition Commission in 2019. It was the year that Analog, founded by Otto Poon, was listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. 2 years later, the competition watchdog started legal proceedings against the two companies. Intel and its competitor, Shunheng Engineering Contracting Company, are accused of price fixing, market sharing, and bid rigging in air conditioning projects worth $2 billion for more than 4 years. Shunheng and its parent company were sued too. The watchdog also launched proceeding against 2 senior engineers from Analog and a senior manager from Shunheng, who are accused of exchanging information on bidding, tenders, and quotes. The commission said the alleged anti-competitive actions reduced choice and potentially increased the cost of air conditioning work, including the installation of central air conditioners. The watchdog asked the competition tribunal to penalize the 4 companies and the 3 employees. Poon said the 2 staff members involved in the case are still working for the company and operations remain normal. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
A former TVB technician has been sentenced to 1 year in jail for calling on protesters to damage the network's transmission station in 2019. Kwun Tong Magistracy convicted 27-year-old Chung Kin-hwa of 3 counts of incitement to commit criminal damage. He was charged with posting seditious content on the online forum LIHKG between August and November 2019. The posts also incited others to damage closed-circuit television cameras in MTR stations and branches of Maxim's bakeries. Magistrate Lau Sok-han described Chung as ignorant and selfish, adding that his actions had impacted Hong Kong's economy. Hong Kong's incoming leader, John Lee, has pledged to strengthen international ties to enhance the city's status as a metropolis and gateway to China. His statement came as local and mainland officials spoke about the achievements and prospects of the one country, two systems principle. Joanna Ho reports.
Speaking at a forum organized by the Bauhinia Culture Group, Chief Executive-elect John Lee said the one country, two systems principle has been successful despite challenges in the past 25 years. Recalling the anti-government protests, he described them as painful for Hong Kong. But Lee said President Xi Jinping told him that the principle is guaranteed by the Constitution and the Basic Law and will bring the city stability.
Looking to the future, President Xi added, that Hong Kong has achieved a major transition from chaos to order and is now at a crucial stage of advancing to prosperity.
Lee pledged to promote Hong Kong's legal system and enhance ties with the outside world, despite being badmouthed in international politics. Speaking at the same event, outgoing Chief Executive Carrie Lam paid tribute to Beijing for intervening when there was chaos in Hong Kong. She said the one country, two systems principle could have been derailed without the national security law and the electoral revamp. Echoing Xi and Lee, she said Hong Kong is entering a new era of stability, prosperity, and opportunity. Meanwhile, Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office Deputy Director Huang Liu-chuan said Hong Kongers are enjoying greater freedom than ever. He said those who had bet that the city would fail had lost. Joanna Ho, HKIBC.
The verdict on a deadly traffic accident 4 years ago has been postponed again, this time for 3 months. Relatives of 2 victims left West Kowloon Magistracy this morning after the prosecution told the coroner's court that the driver may face charges, including dangerous driving causing death. Judge Stanley Ho accepted the request to continue the inquest in September. In December 2018, an empty school bus careered down Chung Hung Street in North Point, killing 5 passers-by and injuring 10 others. The driver was summoned for not properly applying the handbrake. Police in Taiwan have arrested a man following a fire which killed 8 members of his family. The suspect was said to have quarreled with his mother before the tragedy. Isaac Lee again.
The northwestern Taiwanese city of Hsinchu is in shock following a deadly fire. Explosions were heard late last night as flames and smoke engulfed a two-story structure, which served as a home for a family of 11 and a tire repair workshop. After putting out the blaze, firefighters made a grisly discovery. 8 bodies were spotted on the second floor. The victims included 4 children, with the youngest just 1 year old. Police arrested the 31-year-old suspect who allegedly quarreled earlier with his mother, who was among those killed in the fire 90 kilometers from Taipei. His father, who was on the ground floor, was in despair after being unable to rescue his family because the wooden boards separating the 2 floors had collapsed. The suspect reportedly confessed that he started the fire. Isaac Lee, HKIBC.
Overseas, police in Brazil say a man has confessed to shooting dead an expert on jungle tribes and a British journalist in a remote part of the Amazon. Officers said Amarildo da Costa de Oliveira took authorities to where the bodies were buried and was able to provide details of what happened. His brother was also arrested. Researcher Bruno Pereira and reporter Dom Phillips had been missing for 10 days. Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro came under fire for saying Phillips was disliked by indigenous communities and should have been more careful. Hong Kong's central bank has raised its lending rate by 75 basis points after the U.S. Federal Reserve increased borrowing costs by the biggest amount in nearly 3 decades. Local commercial banks have maintained their prime lending rates, but officials warned the public to be cautious. Chloe Feng reports.
Just hours after the U.S. Federal Reserve announced a 75 basis point interest rate increase, its highest in 28 years, Hong Kong's de facto central bank followed suit. That took the Hong Kong Monetary Authority's base rate to 2%, the level it stood before the COVID pandemic. Chief Executive Eddie Yue said more carry trade activity is expected and could lead to a capital outflow from the city.
As for the commercial interest rates of the banks, they will decide on the timing and magnitude for adjusting their saving and lending interest rates, having regard to their own funding cost structures and other relevant considerations.
Hong Kong's major banks kept their prime lending rates at about 5%. Financial Secretary Paul Chen said the city's $280 billion interbank balance is enough to maintain financial stability, but warned the public to monitor the increased volatility risks in global markets.
For people who want to take out mortgage loans, who want to invest in different classes of assets, do pay attention and make proper assessment of one's affordability.
The U.S. Federal Reserve has been raising rates in a bid to reduce inflation, which is at a 4-decade high of 8.6%, making food and fuel more expensive.
We're strongly committed to bringing inflation back down, and we're moving expeditiously to do so. We have both the tools we need and the resolve that it will take to restore price stability on behalf of American families and businesses.
Powell signaled another 75 basis point rate increase next month. Chloe Feng, HKIBC.
Hong Kong stocks began the day strongly, but the Hang Seng Index lost 2.2% at the end of trading. The tech sector took a beating, led by video sharing platform Kuaishou, which dived nearly 9%. Alibaba, Tencent, and Meituan lost between 3 and 4% each. Shipping stocks all fell on fears that higher interest rates would affect exports. Orient Overseas gave up nearly 7%, but mainland education stocks continued a winning run. Koolearn Tech skyrocketed by over 72%, advancing for the 9th consecutive session. A look at the markets now. The Hang Seng Index closed down 462 points. Top 10 active stocks. Koolearn was up $12.04. Tencent down $12.20. Tracker Fund down 48 cents. JD down $4.20. Over to foreign exchange rates, it's 8.16 to the euro and 9.54 to the British pound. In UK markets, the FTSE is down 174 points. Finally, a look at the weather before we go. We'll have some sunny periods with a few showers and isolated thunderstorms tomorrow. Temperatures will range between 26 and 31 degrees. Expected to be mainly cloudy throughout the weekend. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. And that's our main news for Thursday night. Join us for more at 11. I'm Wynna Wong. Have a good evening.